Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Lauren Cielo from Golden Rose Psychic Services.
And I'm Crystal Heinemann from Crystal Sunshine Psychic Services.
And this is the Metaphysical Q&A podcast,
where we make metaphysics crystal clear
and golden delicious.
Metaphysical QA is a subscription-based podcast that's going to shift the way each human views their experiences that they're having here on this earth plane.
That's right. Crystal and I are professional clairvoyant healers and teachers, and we plan on using this platform to help explain all the experiences that we're having in easily understood metaphysical terms.
And our viewers and listeners supply the questions. That's you all. If you'd like to submit a question, would you please visit our website right here, www.metaphysicalqa.com, or you can submit a question on our Facebook page, which is Metaphysical Q&A. And if we do use your question on an upcoming podcast, one of us will send you a free reading.
Excellent. Well, Crystal, what are the questions for this episode?
Okay, Lauren, well, we have 3 questions for today. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Question number 1 comes from Paul in Atlantic City. Hello, Paul, and thanks so much for submitting your question. And Paul wants to know, how does automatic writing work, and what does one use it for? Great question.
Yeah.
Number 2 comes from Mandy in Phoenix. Hello, Mandy. And Mandy wants to know, I'm so frustrated trying to learn how to swing a pendulum. My friend says a clockwise circle means yes, and a counterclockwise circle means no. Is that the correct way to use a pendulum? Question number 3 comes from Kristen, Ontario, Canada. And Kristen wants to know, what method of divination would you recommend for a beginner? Great questions, everyone. So I think this really has like a really great divination feel to it, Lauren. So I'm thinking, let's call this one the Metaphysics of Divination.
I love it, Crystal. Great questions and a great title. So let's talk about what divination is before we jump into the answers. Divination is using an object to read energy. So a pendulum, obviously, you swing it yes or no. And like Mandy wants to know in Phoenix if she's doing it the right way. Automatic writing is absolutely divination. And when we get to Kristen's question, we'll find out what maybe the easiest forms of divination might be for a beginner. So one of the interesting things about divination, and the reason I like it so much, Crystal, is whatever object you're using, once you've pretty much mastered it, in other words, you know how it speaks to you, then you can use it to query different sources. So in the very same reading, I can ask my body a question. Like if I'm swinging a pendulum, I can ask my body, do you want a banana? Right? The pendulum will tell me yes or no. Or I could use the pendulum to talk to Ankiyaya, my healing master, maybe the supreme being, or my other guides and angels. So I like divination. It's easy, and you have so many sources available. So why don't we get to the first question?
I'm ready, and I love divination, so here we go. Okay, to start off our podcast today, Lauren, we have Paul, once again from Atlantic City. And so question number 1, Paul wants to know, how does automatic writing work, and what does one use it for?
Excellent question. So it might seem that automatic writing is more of an advanced form of divination, but it doesn't really have to be. This is how I do it, and it's very childlike. Let's start with why you would want to do it, and then we'll get into the ways I do it that anybody can do. So just like anything, you have a question and you need an answer, you go to divination. And again, I always think it's important to realize who the source is, whenever you're doing any kind of divination. So what I do is I like to take different color felt pens, and I'll go into meditation first to kind of just clear my space. And then what I'll do is I'll ask whatever source I want, to give me information to plug into my off hand. So I'm right-handed, so I'll have them plug into my left hand, and I'll have a piece of paper there and my colored pens, and they're out just kind of scattered around. So I go into meditation and I ask whoever, maybe it's my higher self that I might be asking a question to, like maybe about something to do with one of my contracts. So I might say, okay, higher self, will you please plug into my hand? And then with my eyes closed, I'll reach out and I'll pick a pen. I don't know what color it is. I take the cap off and I just kind of relax and breathe deep and just kind of let my hand move over the paper until I'm done, right? Then I don't worry about the cap. I just pick up another pen, take off the cap, and start whatever my arm wants to do while I'm just thinking about the question. And then you just go on and on. Maybe you pick a certain number of pens, or maybe you just put them all out there. And when you're done, when you feel you're done, you're done. And then after you have this masterpiece, the way that I interpret it is just the way that we did when we were kids, right? And you'd look up at the clouds and you'd see that maybe that one looked like a elephant or a butterfly. Well, they aren't really elephants or butterflies, they're clouds. But the Homo sapien brain has the ability to mesh them all together to come up with something the brain can recognize. So if your little masterpiece, what I like to do is kind of set it far away from me. And then with my eyes open, I just kind of look at it as if it were a cloud. And with the different colors and just the scribbling, there may be some letters or things that look like letters, but I'm really looking at it like an image, kind of like the way I read people's faces. We might call it a picture. And then I just read whatever I get coming through the picture. And of course, if I were to look at one automatic writing piece, and I might even title it so I know what I was divining and who was the source who was plugged into my hand, I might go back to it from time to time and see what else I see in it. So I hope that answers Paul's question. Crystal?
Wow, excellent, excellent. I love how hearing your stories and I compare them to how I work it as well, and very similar. So thank you so much. Yeah, and Paul, of course, I was taking a peek at you, and I was looking at how you're going to use automatic writing in your space, and and the way that what came through is it's really your higher self that's coming through and wanting to really get in touch with yourself, and that's the soul aspect of us, and that's really who is running the show here on earth. And like what Lauren and I, we always say, it's like just the best thing you can do is just get out of the way of your higher self, because it's going to have the experience it wants to. So really it's your higher self that's coming through and wanting to really motivate you to work with automatic writing. And so I looked into your space, and I would definitely use Lauren's tools about how he was teaching you to do that. And you're going to find that your higher self is very much connected to this automatic writing for you, and you will get messages. And another thing that I'm getting, so that's going to be your main source that you're working with. So you would call in your higher self to work with your non-dominant hand. And another way that you're going to work with it is actually through the Akashic records. And we all have Akashic record keepers as a guide, whether you know them or not. You have had one since you've incarnated here. Maybe several times you've had the same record keeper. And your record keeper really wants to start communicating with you as well. And that's going to come through as automatic writing too. So between those two sources and your higher self and receiving messages from what your higher self is really creating right now, your Akashic record keeper is wanting to talk to you about your records right now. So I think that you're really on to something, Paul. I think you have a lot of big things coming on, because you've got some pretty big wigs that really want to come through and start talking with you through your automatic writing. So would you please keep us posted on how your automatic writing goes? You can always contact us through our website at www.metaphysicalqa.com and just leave a comment about how your automatic writing is going. Yeah.
All right, we're back with question number 3, and this comes from Mandy in Phoenix. Now, Crystal, Mandy says she's so frustrated trying to learn to swing a pendulum. Her friend has told her that clockwise, if it's swinging clockwise, it means yes, and counterclockwise means no. And Mandy wants to know if that's correct.
Thanks so much for your question, and thanks, Dr. Lauren. I love that you're working with a pendulum, Andy. First and foremost, I love it. I work with my pendulum every single day. It's one of my favorite forms of divination. Now, with a pendulum, here's the thing with working with a pendulum. And I can empathize because I have some family members that cannot swing a pendulum for the life of them and they can't really get the language down. And really, the cool thing about a pendulum is that it has each specific pendulum. So whether you have 10 pendulums or whether you just have one pendulum, each specific pendulum has its own language and communicates in its own way. So when your friend says, "Hey, this is how it is," here's the rules to the pendulum. A yes is a right swing, and then a no is a counterclockwise swing. Well, that may be true for your friend's pendulum, but that may not be true for your particular pendulum. So again, each pendulum has its own language. And so you really have to get to know your language. And I even name my pendulums. I have about, 5 that I work with. And I don't know why I choose the particular one. It's just I'm drawn to one, but each one has its own name. And I highly encourage you to do that. And each one has its own language. And if you'd like to learn more about learning the language of how to use your psychic pendulum, I actually have a video that you can access for free on my website at www. You can see it right here, crystalsunshinePsychicServices.com/pendulum. And both Dr. Lauren and I have a really neat way of learning the language of your pendulum. So first, learn the language of your pendulum. And then that's going to be, I don't really like the words right or wrong, but then you're going to learn that language of your particular pendulum. And it may be completely different from the language of your friend's pendulum. I hope that helps, Mandy. Lauren?
Well, Mandy, I was peeking at you. And it's so interesting because what you showed me kind of loops back to the first question from this episode about automatic writing. And I just asked your higher self to give us some information about you and pendulums. And I was shown a past life picture where what you're doing, it's a pendulum that's suspended like by a frame of some type. And there is a parchment underneath the frame, and the pendulum hangs down, and it's inked to where it makes a design. I see this picture in my mind. So, Crystal, does that ring a bell to you when I say that picture? I know, right? I don't know where I've seen it before. I know, right?
Yes.
So Mandy, you kind of combined the movement of this pendulum, again, suspended on a wooden frame that's writing on this parchment down below. So it was part swinging a pendulum and then part looking at the image that was created. So I don't know what you're going to do with that, but let us know. Contact us and let us know if you create something like that, or maybe find something on the internet and let us know what it's called. So that's what I got, Mandy. I hope that helps.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Can I add one more thing, Lauren? Yeah. Well, if you all don't know, Lauren and I a lot of the time share the same reading screen. We're able to match our energy for the most part. And what I got was Atlantean times on that past life. So maybe even perhaps look into that era. And I'm excited to hear your feedback, Mandy. So thanks for taking a peek at that, Dr. Lauren. I love that.
That's super fun. All right. Well, let's move on to question number 3.
Okay, we're on to our last question here, number 3. And this one comes from Kristen from Ontario, Canada. Hello, and thank you so much, Kristen. And Lauren, Kristen wants to know, what method of divination would you recommend for a beginner?
I love this question. I really do, because it's such a wide open question. Well, I'll tell you what I would suggest. And it's a funny name, but it's really easy to do. It's called bibliomancy. So biblio means book, and mancy, it's kind of a common, I don't know, the end of divination. So whenever you see a word ending in mancy, that means that it's some form of divination, kind of a shortcut way. So really what you do is you pick a book, any book, but certain books are better, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So you pick a book, and then you decide who is going to be the source of your information, again, your angels, maybe your dead grandmother, whoever you'd like. You take the book and you pose the question to whoever your source is, and then you randomly open the book to any page and allow your eyes to randomly fall on a word, phrase, or maybe a couple sentences. And then that's the answer to your question. So it's really, really easy, and it gives you great communication if you just read the words. But what I would suggest is think of the book that you'll be using. Probably a dictionary wouldn't be very good, or an encyclopedia, but maybe your favorite fiction novel, like maybe one of the Harry Potter books, or one of mine and Crystal's favorite books, Mists of Avalon, that's the one I always go to. So, and some folks like to get, I don't know, take a step in their divination, and maybe you would want that book to set to the side of other books and just use it for that specific intention, like, maybe not let friends borrow it to really read it, kind of set it off to a sacred site, sacred space. That might be what I would do. But actually, bibliomancy was one of the first forms I did because it was so easy to understand. So give it a go, and let us know how it all turns out for you.
I love that. Thanks, Dr. Lauren. I love that. And I was taking a peek at you, of course. And I do want to add, I love the idea that Dr. Lauren said, keep this particular, book sacred to you. And it is important. I mean, I know Lauren and I, we always ground our physical bodies. We're always grounding and releasing our energy. And I highly recommend it if you are wanting to get into any sort of like divination, to whatever tool you are going to use, and whether it is that book, because I definitely see that in your space. What you would do would just imagine like a grounding cord, almost like a straw that's connected from the book or any sort of divination tool that you're going to use, and just kind of ground it all in your head. Just imagine like a straw, or some kind of like a silly straw, just being connected to that book and then to the center of the earth. And so you're able to really release any energy for whatever divination tool that you're using. Just release it. So it's almost like a clean slate that you're working on. And that really seems to open up the energy as well. And so I was taking a peek at you, and what I wanted to look at is past lives of when you were a diviner, when you actually were a diviner, where you used divination in your everyday life. And I think that's probably why you're kind of curious and why you came to us with this question, because it's your soul's memory just sort of coming through and wanting to come through. It's part of your soul fabric. So I saw several past lifetimes of when you were a diviner, but what you really wanted to talk to me about is a past life. It kind of feels like it was about like, I don't know, like 1700s into maybe, about like mid 1700s. And I think it was, it feels that it's very like sort of like New Orleans time period, like kind of Cajun, where there's a lot of French energy around it, but it doesn't feel like it's French Canadian. It feels more like it's kind of Bayou, a little Cajun in there. And you were a scryer. And what a scryer is, or scrying, is essentially looking into something to get an image back. So, and what you were particularly looking into was a crystal ball. That is a scryer. When you read a crystal ball, you look into it for information to come back, and what we would call pictures. And so you look into it and wait for it to come back. I also see you, and this is also a Mist of Avalon. So it's so funny that you had mentioned that, Dr. Lauren, is you can scry in like a fountain of water, like a puddle of water. There's scrying that you can do that and see an image back, or in like a black mirror, you could see an image back. But your main thing was you were scrying into a crystal ball, and you did this personally, and you weren't really, you were very prominent, like very high society in New Orleans time. And you did this for fun. You didn't really let people know that you were doing this, but you had like a whole room where you would go in, and it was almost like a closet where it was a private room, and you would go in and you would scry in your crystal ball. So you are a diviner. So I'm really excited for you to bring forward your divination tools, your skills. So again, let us know. We want to hear feedback of how this is really working into your life after you find this information out. So all right. Well, I really hope that that answers your question. And for all of you, if you heard your question answered in this episode, would you please visit our website, which is right here, www.metaphysicalqa.com, and click the free reading button, because either one of us would love to offer you a free reading for submitting your question.
Excellent. Well, Crystal, do you think we've done it again?
Well, Lauren, here we go. I do believe that we have done it yet again, where we're making metaphysics crystal clear
and golden delicious.
So please visit our website, www.metaphysicalqa, to subscribe and to submit your questions. And if you're interested in anything that I may be doing, would you please check me out at www.crystalsunshinepsychicservices.com.
And check me out on the internet, Golden Rose Psychic Services and laurencielo.com.
Thanks.
Please hang up and try again.